Until the store itself is actually available to us for us to look at and examine their pricing structure and everything of that nature, it's a little too early to make the call. However, I will warn anybody interested in getting into this game that just because it says free does not mean you will not end up spending money on it. Really good hype and reviews on it. So sentiment is actually, despite it not entirely being up my alley, APB Reloaded is coming out soon, and it will include a cash shop. But what about all the other pitfalls that the previous APB had? Has Gamers First managed to overcome the perils that faced the first title? Has Gamers First managed to fix the issues that the original APB faced? And what does this relaunch actually... And what ramifications could this potential relaunch's success... And what potential ramifications could the success of this relaunch have on the industry in general? Find out next as we take a first impressions look at APB Reloaded. I think that came together. Editing for the win. I've been staring at that green LED so much that I can't see the chat room. I don't think that's entirely true, Huggy, because Grand Theft Auto was not multiplayer. To be honest, I compare the combat of APB with Counter-Strike or Unreal Tournament. It's vicious, it's ruthless, and you're never going to be as good as everybody out there. Very, very, very loosely rotten corpse. A lot of people have broadened. I will never use that term. A lot of people have mentioned Saints Row when they've seen me preview APB. I've never played Saints Row, so I don't know anything about it. APB is exclusively PvP. Well, it's objective-based PvP, which means that your goal is not to kill the other person. Your goal is not to kill the other person. Your goal is to complete your objectives, but the other person's in your way. I agree, Rotten Corpse. But again, that's not what I'm going to be talking about in this. In this editorial, I'm focusing on two primary things, and that is Gamers First is implementing a pay-to-win cash shop. So that's one thing I'll be talking about. I think it's still in beta. Let's see. How do I do the... it mode -G? No. I don't remember how to turn off the sensor. I'm a lame-o. Okay, so the three things I want to talk about APB. Pay to win, customization, and the concept of a big budget relaunch under a new flag bearer. Everything else about reviewing the actual game content, the playability, everything. Not going to be mentioned in this episode. If you would like to bring that up and start discussing it, I do have things to talk about. So again, I would encourage you to head on over to the colony and start an APB thread, and I would love to talk to you all about it. I will need to, both APB and Age of Empires, because I need to get visuals for this show. So yes, you can bet that you'll see APB and Age of Empires at some point this week. I wanted to do LA Noire, but I don't have it. Too expensive. I don't want to be reading anything, McCabe. And I can't really put a script anywhere that I could read it and still look at the camera. And I want to feel like I'm engaging the audience rather than just reading something. So I have a rough outline of a script here. Actually, it's an article. I can't write without making an article, apparently, which will be posted on my thread, on my blog when the episode comes out. But I don't want to read it. I don't want to just be sitting here reading the screen, because that's boring. So I know the concepts that I have to bring up. I already know my opinions on this stuff because I did the research and I wrote the script, the article, so it should come out of my brain and into the microphone. It's just a question of this thing that gets in the way of the brain and the microphone, you know, the mouth. I'm out of water. Hitting record again. Ah, cash shops, the money-grubbing, nickel-and-diming of the MMO industry. Pretty much everybody hates these things in the Western markets, but let's face it, they become the bread and butter of the Eastern MMO markets. If you were ever to play anything published in Korea or Japan, or if you were ever to play an actual MMO, if you were ever actually to play a free-to-play... Practically every Eastern MMO relies upon a cash shop that not only fuels their entire development budget, but also very frequently encourages players to pay to win. The relaunch of APB Reloaded is being headed up by a company out of Korea called Gamers First. So it shouldn't be a great surprise that the cash shop for APB Reloaded will include weapons, cars, ammo, boosts to your character. All of these are temporary things, but nonetheless, they are ways to encourage players to spend real-life money to get an edge in combat. In a game that is driven entirely by PvP-focused content, this is something that's going to turn off a lot of players. And marketing the game as a free-to-download, free-to-play title when in order to survive you have to spend money is a bit disingenuous. On the other hand, if you've got a credit card with a high limit and you want to have a rocket launcher on day one, boom! And to be honest, I wouldn't be so opposed to the concept of a pay-to-win in a free-to-play title of this nature if it weren't for the fact that this entire game is driven by players going up against other players. Many people have compared the gameplay of APB Reloaded to Grand Theft Auto, but when it comes down to interpersonal disputes in this game, they're handled much more similarly to a matchmaking first-person shooter like Counter-Strike or Unreal Tournament or Quake, something of that nature. The combat is extremely brutal, very vicious and fast-paced. And the addition of a cash shop that can improve your performance on a very real basis in that type of a game would never fly. At least not with Western markets. At least not within Western markets. So, will this lead to the demise of APB Reloaded? Not likely. I don't think that's likely. If anything is the downfall of APB, it's the fact that the gameplay itself does not tend to focus on what MMOers are after. People that enjoy titles like WoW and Rift and EverQuest and EVE are not generally going to find themselves enthralled by the gameplay aspects of APB Reloaded. I don't doubt that there's an audience there. I just don't think that it's the potential. I just don't think that it's the traditional MMO gamer. Which is a little disappointing for this particular MMO gamer, because APB also includes something that every MMOer will love to death. If you've already seen the videos out there of character customization that APB is offering, all of this is still intact in the relaunched version. All of this is still intact under the relaunched version coming out under Gamers First banners. Gamers First banner. Coming out under the Gamers First banner. From hairstyles to self-designed tattoos, body type, sliders for everything. And this is the kind of stuff that an MMO gamer eats up. Hell, I think an MMO gamer might buy this title for this alone and not even bother ever firing a single bullet. And when you get right down to it, this is the sole reason that I'm interested in seeing APB Reloaded actually succeed, is because there is no other MMO currently on the market that offers this level of customization of your avatar in-game. We have seen a few other games that are coming out in the future that are offering similar customization, most notably EVE. But to date, no title has shown success while offering this many features. Now, I have a couple things to say about that. One is that the continued success of APB Reloaded, or any game that offers this level of customization, is only a good thing for the industry as a whole, because it will encourage other developers to take that concept and run with it, further enhancing their own character customization so that in the future other games can embrace that and offer us the ability to look like exactly what we want to look like as our avatars. The second thing I want to say to it is actually a reference back to the cash shop earlier. You see, Gamers First has decided to put things like weapons and cars and power sets onto the cash shop, when they could have instead put tattoos or hairstyles or facial sliders or earring packs, or shirts, or pants, or shoes, or cars, or car decals, or whatever they wanted to. They could have made the cash shop and they could have made the customization of this game drive the monetization effort of their in-game cash shop. They chose a different route. I can't say I agree, but I do wish them the best of success on that. As long as they're not after my money. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about on this. I covered pay to win, I covered customization, the relaunch itself. Now the last subject I want to cover with APB Reloaded is APB Reloaded. Now the last subject I want to cover on APB Reloaded is actually a little bit more far-reaching. You see, over the course of my years within the MMO industry as a gamer, I've seen many high-budget games fail. Some of the most notable I brought up on the previous episode: Tabula Rasa, Auto Assault, Matrix Online, Stargate Worlds. There have been literally hundreds of good quality, high-budget titles that have simply not seen the light of day or been canceled before their lifespan was actually or been canceled before their prime. Now think back to some of those favorites. I know a lot of you out there have been interested in one title or another that just never made it. Well, what if a company like Gamers First had come along at the perfect point in time and rescued your title and dug it out of the cemetery and resurrected it for everybody to play with? I'm sure you would have been interested in seeing that game succeed, and I can only hope that APB Reloaded can actually succeed because of that. Adding an extra layer of hope to the MMO industry for the really innovative titles is something that is never a bad thing for the industry as a whole. And I think we can all attest to the fact that some of those games we loved and never got to play, or only got to play for a very short of time, were likely canceled by greedy publishers. At least, that's the impression we get. So if more companies out there start being willing to take a risk on a game that has either flopped or simply not made enough profit to ingratiate themselves with their initial publisher, then we, as gamers, may suddenly be faced with a lot more options. A lot more freedom to be able to play the games that we like to play. So despite my misgivings on APB Reloaded as a game in general, there are many reasons that I want to see this happen. There are many reasons that I'd like to see it succeed. And I will be keeping a close eye on things as they progress. And I think that's a good place to stop. Yep. Then I'm going to do a little wrap-up segment. You guys have been talking your faces off in the chat room, so I'm going to try to catch up a little bit. I don't have a whole lot of time, though, because it's 7 and we need to start another show soon. Just being silly? Okay, then I'm not going to bother. I like that you guys can just talk amongst yourself. I really do like that. If there's anything that came up in the chat room tonight that you would like my specific attention on and want an opinion, JupiterColony.com. Look for the Morgue subforum. I think it's at the very bottom. And post away. I'm going to be try to be really active on there. And I'm about to point everybody watching this over there as well. I don't know, RCO. We looked up Gothic on the internet, and this is what came up.
Oh.
All right, I have to figure out what I'm talking about next week. Aha! Hitting record. Uh-oh, got something in my eyeball. It's my finger! Well, that about wraps us up for this week's Morgue. Well, that about wraps us up for this week's episode of The Morgue. I hope you guys have all enjoyed it, and feel free to leave your comments wherever you're watching this. If you have any further commentary to add on these particular games, I have a lot to say about both of them. Age of Empires Online and APB Reloaded are pretty close to my heart for different reasons. So head on over to JupiterColony.com, look for the Morgue subforum, and if you have any questions about either, I would love to talk to you about them. Now coming up in episode 3 of The Morgue, it will be a very superhero-y edition. Why?